On this next episode of the Life After podcast, we welcome former NFL running back and Super Bowl champion Rex Burkhead. And look, Rex speaks to transitions in life being difficult, especially when you've known yourself as this thing for so long. Rex, after winning the Super Bowl, thinking that that was the pinnacle to find ultimate fulfillment, was left with questions of, well, what's next? Where do we go from here? That's after playing with people like Tom Brady. He talks about the influence that Tom had on his life and how he pursues anything. I think you're going to connect with what it is for him to ask questions that we've all asked ourselves when facing these life-altering moments. Go check out the episode. What's up, everybody? I am stoked to be back. David Vobora, your host of Life After Podcast, and I'm here with one of my best dudes, man, Rex Burkhead. Welcome to the pod, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The pride of Plano, Texas.
Oh, man.
Plano Senior, right?
Plano Senior.
Yeah.
Original.
Yeah.
Original.
So you were actually born in Kentucky, I read?
Kentucky,
Okay.
Lexington, Kentucky.
How old were you guys when you came to Texas?
I was 6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
Was
6
it
years
dad's job?
old. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be cool to talk about
Yeah,
what
we
Pops
can
did
talk
now.
about it. Yeah, he's retired from it. Yeah, he was ended up getting a job with the FBI here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And so
Big job.
Yep, big job. And so that moved us down here. And he worked in the FBI for almost 25 years.
Yeah, big deal.
And then retired and now has his own private security company. So,
Your family's awesome, bro. Like, to me, you guys are like the gold standard of what I consider a great Texas family. Did you ever think you were going to go on that path, like law enforcement, military?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
No. I mean, always intrigued me. Always, had high respect for those people
Sure.
and law enforcement, military personnel.
Yeah.
I love the training that went into all of it as well.
Yeah.
But I never saw that as kind of my,
Path.
line going forward.
Did your dad take you guys to the range, hunting? You guys do stuff?
Yeah, we did some range stuff.
Yeah.
They had this kids day at the FBI office here in Dallas that we would go to. And
Sweet.
you would do, where's the mystery? They put you under some things. And, I don't know. It was pretty cool. Though.
Get you on lie detectors.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you and your older
Yep.
brother, Ryan,
Yep.
who's also an incredible athlete,
Mhm.
ended up playing ball at Harvard.
He did.
2 years older?
2.5. Yep.
Two and a half.
2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about growing up, man, because I can imagine, and you got two boys now, so
Yeah.
you and Ryan had to duke it out early and often.
Oh yeah, we did quite often. We were, both super competitive.
Yeah. Did he bully you?
There's no bullying. I wouldn't call it bullying, but brotherly love.
Yeah.
Where those video games, playing basketball in the driveway,
Yeah.
we were very competitive.
Do you remember anything that sticks out of a time where like you finally got him? Like I remember I had an older sister, but I remember beating my dad for the first time in horse.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you couldn't tell me anything, bro.
Yeah, it was actually in basketball, one-on-one basketball. I would start to beat him and he just could not take it. Like we would end up playing probably 20 games of one-on-one, until he would finally, beat me. But since I started beating him, it was just in his mind, I can't let this happen.
Yeah.
So
That's fun, man.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Plano, you were, all world. The statistics in high school and stuff are crazy in football and basketball. Then you ended up going to the University of Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
How was Lincoln?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah?
I mean, there's no place like it.
Talk about a mecca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I went there on my visit. Really, my dad, he got me to go. 'Cause I was like, I don't know.
What other
about
places?
Nebraska.
What other places did you visit, or were you thinking?
I visited kind of all over. All the Texas schools. Went out to Cal, Stanford, hit Alabama, Auburn.
Yep.
Kind of everywhere. And then he's like, "No, I promise you'll like it there." And so took the visit, and I was like, truly shocked just how nice the facilities were.
Yeah.
The people were great. Coach Pelini was awesome. He was a big reason I went there. Didn't promise me anything. He's like, you come here, work hard, you'll have an opportunity to play. And so I respected that, and it felt right.
So did you play as a true freshman?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
And was that special teams is kind of how you made your in, or was it like, running back?
I did a little
receiver?
special teams, but I was the two back. Roy Halou was our starting running back at the time.
Yeah.
And so me and him would kind of, mix it up a little bit. I did some Wildcat quarterback as well and everything. So we had a good team. That was when Suh was a senior. We played in the Big 12 championship that year.
Yeah.
when Texas got the 1 second back on the clock somehow.
Deep state, bro.
Yes,
Texas, they always find a way.
I know.
So that was sort of a turning point, kind of Nebraska getting back on the map, right?
Mhm.
Like, because it had been some rough years. And
Yeah.
I mean, your stats were just as legit and badass as they were in high school and college, which is remarkable. As you kind of got later in your career and, you know, the NFL became a reality, scouts are watching you, people were talking, like, where were they saying they saw you from an NFL draft perspective, and where did you feel like you fit?
Yeah, so after my junior, I had a really good junior year, and, you know, they're kind of talking in that 2 to 4 round range, and so I was honestly kind of thinking, okay, should I come out early, you know, have a chance of injury my senior year? And I ultimately decided to come back, you know, want to finish up, get my degree, and, you know, try to win a championship. We had been to, you know, 2 of my 3 years there prior, we had been in the conference championship twice, lost both of them. And so I was like, all right, I want to get back and win one.
You were probably close with your guys too, right?
Close with the guys. You know, I love, you know, the team atmosphere of it all. And going to senior year, first game that season, we're playing against Southern Miss, and I want to say it was my second run, you know, pop up like a 60-yard touchdown run, and then come back my next run on the next series. Jamie Collins, who actually I played with in New England, hits me low on my knee, and you know, partially tear MCL, grade 2+, and so battled that the whole year. You know, a lot of questions like, oh, why now? You know, and I'm
sure scouts said you got a little asterisk next to you. You know, is this guy
running back
healthy?
Injured. Yes, and so that senior year was a lot of that, and you know, I kept trying to come back, but aggravated and stuff. But ultimately, it all worked out. Got drafted by the Bengals. And
I mean, did you all like? I have this question for a lot of people that, you know, I think had aspirations of playing the league, but there was like not any certainty. There's never certainty.
Right.
So was there this feeling for you, like, as long as you just focus on what you could do in this given day, like that was going to take care of itself?
Yes.
Did you have this feeling like, I'm going to make it there? I don't know how or what it's going to look like, but I'm going to make it there?
Yeah, you know, I did. For whatever reason, ever since I was a little kid, I knew I always wanted to be a football player.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, as most of the guys, you know, could probably say. And so,
there was no second plan.
There was no second plan. Which is making it now even more difficult, you know. But my dad, you know, he dabbled in NFL a little bit. Never was on a team, but was in training camps and stuff as a fullback. And, you know, of course, my brother played as well. So I always had that passion, that love for the game.
Sure.
And like I said, ever since then, I knew what I wanted to do. So pretty much every day of my life.
That was the lens.
That
football
was
first.
The lens. You know, many decisions throughout the day, I would probably say most, were surrounded by, okay, I'm going to protect this goal to be a professional football player and do whatever I can. So,
well, I remember when the draft rolled on for me, and I was slated as a 5th, 6th round pick, right? Yeah. But then it was 7, and then it was obviously Mr. Irrelevant. I got the call in the last pick, but again, call me Mr. Anything you want. I got drafted in the NFL, right? I achieved a dream. And I feel like all I ever wanted was a foot in the door. I mean, what's crazy is you ended up, 2013's 6th round?
Yes.
To the Bengals. Yep. Played 4 there. How was Cincinnati? How was that experience?
Yeah, it was great. Very humbling.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't even playing right away. I was on the roster, but I wasn't on the active roster for a lot of games at the beginning. So I watched and learned a ton.
Yeah. Is there any like welcome to the NFL moments in camp or
yeah, definitely has some of those. You know, we had some big linebackers at the time. So doing pass pro or one-on-ones. We had the Oklahoma drill. You could still do the Oklahoma drill at the time.
Back then there was actually doubles still. Like you were in pads.
So we had Vontez Burfict. We had Ray
Savage.
Maluga.
Savage.
I think James Harrison came over that one year as well. And so we had some big boys and a lot of contact going on. So it was
even in one-on-ones when you're doing pass rush with the running backs or the, you know, or even just pass pro or pass routes.
Right.
You guys in your little Texas routes and freaking that's the hardest, bro.
Yeah, it's like I feel like we would always get them in the one-on-one route stuff, and then when it came time for pass pro, you know, and they tell them you're not allowed to bull, you got to work.
No. We bull every time, bro. We know what we're doing. We're throwing our face in there.
Exactly.
Well, those 4 with the Bengals led to 4 really incredible years with the Patriots, right? To include 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl championship.
Yeah.
So the first was you played Who was in the first one?
The first one was my first year there against the Eagles.
That's right.
Up in
Nick
Minnesota.
Foles.
Yes.
My boy Chris Long.
Yes,
They got him, dude.
Yeah.
There's that throwback to Foles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
How was that again, you get to the moment where we're all desperate to get to, right? That is the crown jewel.
Yeah.
And you see it, slip away.
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was. And even for the guys because, a bunch of guys on that team had been there before.
Right. But there's no guarantee, man.
There's no guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I'm going to get, be able to have the opportunity because I was on a 1-year deal that first year.
But you had this guy, Tom Brady, too.
But we had this guy, Tom Brady. And so, of course, the next year we end up back there.
Yeah. Beat my Rams.
Beat your Rams.
I remember that one, dude.
Yeah.
Well, that's sick. I remember being so pumped for you, man. When you think about, again, then accomplishing it and kind of the full circle experience of that, I had Dominic Dawes here on the pod, and she talked about winning the gold in '96 is actually not even one of her top 10 greatest moments in her life. For her, that was 20 plus years ago, but as she looks in kind of the landscape of what you consider these moments to have great fulfillment,
right?
Was it that for you, or was there this feeling of
yeah, no, there was. I talked about it, with my wife kind of recently. You get to that point, you win that Super Bowl, and you're like, oh man, this is what I've been working for my whole life.
Yeah.
And you feel like it should really fulfill you,
Mm-hmm.
but if your identity is not all in that and it's in something else, which for me is my faith, then you understand that's not going to fulfill you. So there's much more to life than just winning Super Bowls. Even though it's a great thing, it's something you've been working towards your whole life. Your team has that whole season.
Yeah,
it's not truly who you are.
Yeah, I think that there's this need to feel like, again, the destination is more important than the journey along.
Right.
And I know that's cliche, and I have a coach who I still work with today, and he's like, man, they're cliches because they're true. And I think people are always chasing this thing that gives them recognition or just it seems like it will have staying power.
Right.
And yeah, dude, you're in the history books, right?
Yeah.
You got the ring, you held the trophy, you did all that, but really that isn't who Rex Burkhead is in his core. I mean, you are a champion at life. I can say that because I've known you for a long time and respected more than anything your grit, dude. White guy in the NFL, white running back is an endangered species. I cracked one of your dads. You said your dad was a fullback. Talk about a real dying breed.
Yeah.
But watching you play, watching you overcome injuries, I think everybody acknowledged that football's a violent sport and the physicality of it. Everyone's going to be on the injury roster, injury list at some point.
Right.
But how did you approach pain?
Yeah.
Because I think, pain makes cowards out of all of us.
Right. And
as an athlete, when you are injured, it's sort of like there's a commonality to panic. There's this feeling like if I don't have, my gun loaded and ready to go, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm spiraling. How did you deal with some of that adversity?
Man, at the beginning, not that great, honestly. And I kind of progressed and got a lot better towards the end of my career.
I think that just came through wisdom and experience.
Through wisdom, God, putting you through those trials of adversity and just finally understanding those are areas for growth, not necessarily setbacks. It's setting you up for the future. And so I would say early on, and we mentioned that injury, I had in college senior year. That was tough. Yeah. And then, I had stuff later on in my career. And my, mindset after those injuries was way different. It's like, okay, that's all right. That's what's happening right now. But we're still going to attack the rehab or whatever it is going on that next day following to the fullest.
It's like, as you thought the route was this way. And then you come in well, that bridge is not there anymore, right? The pivot is this. And you start to recognize that growth is nonlinear. Yeah. And part of the magic of, I think, sports especially is it's an arena that there's a container that parallels, again, hard stuff in life.
Right.
That is the nature, life provides the curriculum. You don't have to look for difficulty. It's going to show up.
Right.
When you talk about your faith, has there been some moments that it's been challenged? I mean, I think through doubts and how that fosters kind of tilling of the soil, so to speak, for you to go deeper. And maybe talk about how you approach difficulties, doubts, the why me, the what ifs type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned the injuries, I guess, and just, certain times where you may not have a good game or something. And it's just like you said, the why me, or why is this happening? This isn't, what I had in my plan.
Yeah,
but really,
sure.
it's not your plan, it's God's plan. And so there are those challenges, throughout, and just your faith being tested and understanding, this is the road God has you on. It's not your own. You may think this is how it should be, but it's really not. So
the DOC episode that we just dropped, him being one of the original rappers at NWA, and then crashing his car and crushing his vocal cords and his voice being, totally wrecked. He talked about for 30 years trying to get back to the day before because he thought that's who he was supposed to be. And he realized that it was actually God who had the plans in place, that he was actually supposed to be this person, not the other one. And I think that the resistance to that, the acceptance of that, is the real marker of somebody who can redefine their lives consistently, but stay true north for their belief system. And I always say this, like, I love this quote, that religion is for people that don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people that have been there. And I'm not here to bag religion at all. Like, I think that people will discover a path and hopefully seek out those deeper questions and look for that higher power. Because, if anything, we realize that, we're mortal. And along this process is the human experience is ripe with pain, and how we respond rather than react is the mark of high character. Was the knee that you hurt in college the same knee that you ended up hurting with the Texans? Because that was the bad one, right?
I was with the Patriots.
Was that the Patriots?
My last year with the Pats.
Okay.
It actually was the same knee, but
that was an icky one.
The one in Patriots, I got blown out. ACL,
I remember watching and I couldn't look at it again. My wife did, and I was like, I don't want to see it.
It was nasty. But I mean, like you said, and I think a really struggle, for me personally, I think, other athletes as well, is, your identity being in your faith and not, you as a football player. Because, I mean, like we mentioned, you're doing it every single day of your life growing up. Like, you're pursuing that. You're pursuing your goals as a football player, even when you make it in the NFL. Off-season training, like every single thing.
Grind.
And so you think when things like that do happen to you, it's like all you're thinking about is, oh, man, am I going to be on the team? Am I going to be on the right team? Are they going to fire me? Are they going to get me out? And so
I don't care how good you are. The night before training camp, everybody goes, do I still got it? I promise. Like, that is a consistency across the board. If somebody tells you otherwise, they're lying. Right. Because it's right there. Everybody's at that level.
And so it's a struggle. I mean, you're super competitive, which is a great thing. And just balancing that out with your faith is
so
tough,
when you think about your boys now, 6 and 4, because I love this question to athletes, which is, how much was God given? Which I think obviously genetically, otherwise you were given some gifts. But through hard work and facing adversity and doing the difficult things to grow through it, you were able to surpass people maybe that were even more God-given in talent. So where would you say the mix is between God-given, like that innate, and the kind of learned and earned process through difficulty?
Yeah, definitely, some God-given talents for sure, like you mentioned.
What's your percentage?
Percentage?
Yeah, give me a percentage.
I got to give you a percentage. I don't know. 50-50, 7-30, I don't know.
Okay.
Somewhere around there maybe. But I think, once you have that talents, you have all those talents. Like you mentioned, there's other guys who had maybe more talented than me, but didn't put them to work and put them to use. And so, for me, I think, I had great examples. My father, he coached me when I was younger. And I think, instilling that mentality into me, hey, you're going to have to work for it.
Watching film, doing the things that other people
are doing. You're going to have to earn it. Nothing is given. And so I remember going out, certain days, I don't advise this to any parents at home. My parents didn't know I was doing this, but it was a thunderstorm, outside. I remember being in 9th grade. It was in the summer and we didn't have training that day. And I was like, man, I feel like I got to get out there and do something. And so I remember going out in that thunderstorm, running barefoot. I mean, lightning strikes down. That was just my mentality. Like, I was going to do whatever I could.
Right? Tough for the scenario, good.
Definitely don't advise that. But I mean,
when it rains here now, like, I grew up in Oregon. So all I knew was wet, muddy games. And I love when it rains now, going out and doing exactly what you just said. Because there's just something about the energy of the air and the environment where everybody else decided, oh, no, the weather's like that, I'm not going to do it.
Exactly.
And we're like, oh, this is my opportunity to take a little bit of ground.
I'm doing what no one else is.
Well, thinking kind of back to your career NFL wise, and again, 4 with the Bengals, 4 with the Pats, 2 with the Texans?
Yes, 2 with
So
the Texans.
got 10 in?
Got 10
so
in.
Sick, dude.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
sick. Respect, bro. Anytime you can go double digits in the league, I don't care who you are, how much talent. There's a lot that, again, injuries and otherwise, there's some luck involved.
Yes, absolutely.
There's some timing
absolutely.
too,
Yes.
but I, like I said, your career was incredible. Any moments stand out in your career, like even funny? I think some of the things that people see on TV is that they forget that we're human.
Yeah.
And the locker room is the best,
Yes.
And I remember one time we were playing New England. Donnie Avery was our kick returner, and Chris Chamberlain is another linebacker on special teams with me. And we were like frontline guys, and we're in the huddle getting ready to go out for the opening kickoff. And right before Chris turns to Donnie, and this was the early days of fantasy football, he's like, "Hey, Donnie, need a big day out of you today." And we're all like, "Yeah, we all need a big day out of everybody. We're playing the Patriots, you know?" And then there's a pause, and he goes, "I started you on my fantasy team." And then we break to walk out there. And the whole time I'm in my head laughing because I'm like, I just heard that right, you know? And they're kind of those moments that in the gravity of the situation, a full stadium, millions of people watching, those little moments of levity are so special to me.
Yes.
You got any of those that stick out?
Oh, man. There's so many. I'm trying to narrow it down to one.
Any player that maybe looked at you when you were maybe needed to hear that one thing and they said that? Or
Yeah. No, I do remember a couple. This was actually in college, and we had this guy, Eric Martin. Okay. He was known for just smacking dudes on special teams, run down on kickoff, the blocker on kick return, whatever it was.
That guy.
And I remember him on kickoff and pointing to the guy he was about to just annihilate and turning to all of us on the sideline like, "It's him. Watch this." And I'm just like, "Okay, we're going to watch it." And sure enough, the guy just depleted. And I'm like, that's special.
That's a good feeling.
Special.
Yeah. It's cool to have. I mean, swagger is again, there can be ego involved. And I think there's a healthy part of that, like as long as, again, when you step off of the field, you can leave it to some degree. Was there times in your life that you had teammates that, again, you played with? Our boy Danny Amendola is one of my best friends, old teammates. Julian Edelman, Gronk, Tom Brady. Where did you see, things in them or ways that they prepared that you've gleaned and that have benefited you, not just in football, but just in life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the way they operated. When I got to New England and see it firsthand, like, we do our walkthrough in our little media room deal. Danny's got his bands on to get his glutes activated, going through the whole walkthrough that way, and the detail, they're actually running routes, but they're walking on, going through it in their mind.
Visualization.
Joel's doing the tennis balls, with the strength coaches in the morning at like 5 a.m., just the detail they had.
Ultimate pros.
Tom had his electrolyte drink already at his table, when we walk into meetings. I mean, just you see the detail that they go through their daily routines with, and you're like, that's why they're so good.
Is it hard for you now, as you've been out of the league for a couple of years, when you've done different things and maybe people don't have that same approach?
Yeah. It is.
Because I know I struggle with that, and as I lead my staff here at the gym, sometimes it's like, I'm stressed, so everyone's going to be stressed. We're all going to work together. And I'm not saying that's good leadership all the time, you know?
Oh, yeah. It is. It's just a totally different environment. And so I think that sense of urgency that you would go into the locker room or your team or your coach is trying to get out of guys. It's different in other areas once you're done with it. And so,
it doesn't make people bad. No, it's hard though.
Yes. Yeah. It is. When you've been operating a certain way, for past 10 years for me playing football, and all of a sudden it's different. It's tough.
So have you been able to find an outlet where you can kind of scratch that itch to still have a level of detail, a level of excellence, and an arena to do it and test yourself?
Yeah. So for me, that was one of the biggest, kind of pieces of advice I got from former players, is like, make sure you're doing something competitive, like right when you're done. And so for me, that's kind of been golf. Been doing some of those tournaments, former athlete tournaments.
You're a good golfer, bro.
I'm getting there, man. I mean, it's some days
it's hard because you think the more time you should be getting so much exponentially better, but it don't work like that.
Exactly. And so that's been a good outlet. I'm also coaching my kids, youth sports teams, which is a way, at first, when I first started doing it, I'd tell myself, okay, this is not.
Let me temper myself.
Calm it down, the expectation level and everything. But it's been so much fun. And so getting that sports fix in with them is a blast.
It's big. I want to jump back a little bit because we talked about Nebraska and that how critical that was to the launch pad to the NFL and your experience, but something that I know is emotionally raw, especially right now, was losing Jack. Jack Hoffman. I'd love for you to sort of share with the audience that don't know, and we'll drop the clip in of the epic Nebraska spring game where he took it in for the tug, and you guys all ran with him behind him and cheered him on. But talk about how that relationship came to be with little Jack, and how much it meant to you over the years and the work with the foundation that you guys launched, and just the impact of it.
Yeah, so I met Jack my junior year in 2011.
He was how old?
He was 6 years old at the time.
Okay.
Just turned 6. Our life skills director, Keith Zimmer at the university, had come up to me, asked me one day, "Hey, would you like to have lunch?" This kid, he just had, surgery for an inoperable brain tumor, and
pediatric cancer is just
it's awful, and they didn't know how much longer he had. Honestly, it was kind of like a Make-A-Wish deal, and so had lunch with him at the stadium that day and his family. Gave him a little tour, ran out on the football field some, and we kind of kept in touch after that. Invited him up to practice. Remember going to Coach Pelini's office. "Hey, you mind if he comes?" And he's like, "Absolutely, bring him on." Bo's awesome. And so he came out to a practice, and then still my junior year, Ohio State game. They were up in a press box. Bo got him up in a press box for a game, and ESPN did a big feature on him. And so that's when Jack's name kind of got out there, and pediatric brain cancer. The awareness started to spread. It's a rare disease, so it doesn't get a lot of funding from the government, so it needs as much money as it can. And then just a couple years later, I just graduated, and it was a spring game in Nebraska. I got a call the night before. "Hey, do you think Jack would want to score a touchdown in the spring game?" And I was
Come
like,
on.
I mean, I would think so. Nebraska boy growing up there. I mean, and so looking at, he actually didn't want to do it. He's so nervous, but later on, he's like, "It was awesome.
The best thing ever." And he's wearing the number 22, guys. It is Jack Hoffman of Team Jack coming out on the field right now. There's 4th down and short.
Because he's in that kid Nebraska mask with the plastic face mask, and he was so focused. His face is everything.
And so he gets out there, and actually, people were like, "Oh, he started running the wrong way," and I was like, "Well, he's using his running back vision because no one is over there."
Go to the open
Everyone
field,
knows
baby.
the play's going that way, so they're all over there. But they got him on the right course.
It's a natural.
Yeah, and just an unbelievable moment. Got SB, moment of the year. Ended up getting invited to the White House to meet the president for it.
Where does that moment measure compared to Super Bowl championship?
Oh man, it's right up there.
Empty.
That was a moment right there. Wow, goosebumps.
It's right up there. I mean, it just shows the quality and character of the people there in Nebraska, not just, the coaches and players, but also the fans. And I mean, just
it's a family.
Unbelievable. It is. Yeah. It is.
So Jack battled for a long time.
He
a lot
did.
Longer than probably was forecasted.
He did. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, he passed at the age of 19, just finished up his first semester in college. And, just, a sad deal, still fresh on the mind. We just lost his dad, Andy, a few years earlier to brain cancer as well. Not even hereditary or related type of cancer. Just a sad deal. And, Andy had done so much. He started the foundation. Foundation has now raised over $15 million for pediatric brain cancer.
Wow.
Starting research, clinical trials all over the country.
Didn't Obama fly you guys to the White House?
Yeah. We went out to the White House and met the president. And so, I mean, they've left a legacy that is unmatched. And, a lot of kids and parents are very thankful.
How did it hit you when you got the news?
It was tough. I actually flew up there right after Christmas because I heard things were rough, kind of going downhill, and I actually saw him sort of a decent state to where it started getting to. But just to see him, struggling to walk, kind of slurring his words was, it's tough to see, and so it hit me. I mean, it's just an unbelievable family, great kid. It's just so inspiring. The first time I met him, it was like, this kid, he knows what he's battling, and he's still enjoying life to the fullest. And even when I saw him after Christmas that weekend, he was doing the same thing. He was cracking jokes with me, and it's like,
wow,
he knows, probably what's going to happen here soon. And so,
well, I'm sure it's all the more too that your oldest is 6 right now, which was the age when you met him and all of that. Well,
right.
That clip to me is a great definition of who you really are and what it is about you that is really special, that I've seen you again walk into rooms and people know who you are, and you're a there you are type of person, not a here I am type of person. And I've always appreciated that. Seemed really refreshing when, again, especially here in Dallas, like your name and what you're known for is an incredible reputation, man. It supersedes just what you accomplished in ball. So utmost respect. So as you thought about, again, deciding to hang him up, I think we all have I want to be John Elway, and leave on the Super Bowl and the MVP, and it just rarely happens. Usually it's injury, or it's just a point where like, hey man, my body is no longer the young man that it was.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, life after football.
Yeah.
This transition that you've been living and how you deal with sort of a lot of the quiet, maybe a little bit of the silence.
Yeah. No, it was definitely tough. Just, going back to the reasons, why to hang it up and everything. Because you always think you're just going to play forever.
No doubt.
And, they always say have a backup plan, and I still don't have one. But
I think anybody that wants to be truly great, there ain't no second plan.
Yeah. And so it was one of those deals that last year. I mean, it was a combination of things. My kids were getting older, about to start up school, and I kind of wanted to be in one place for that. Of course, the body you mentioned. You're good that first day of practice, or first couple days in training camp,
but
and then
the season's long.
The recovery is just not as quick as you once were, and so you see yourself on film, you're like, I don't want to keep putting that out there. And so there's that. There was some family health stuff that kind of popped up at the beginning of my last season as well, and so it was just a combination of that, and it was time. It was time to be done, and so. That transition now, I guess I officially retired this time last year. Yeah. But really it's been 2 seasons I haven't played. And so it's been different. You're used to having a routine every day, pursuing something like structure, pursuing something, that goal or that upcoming season every single day. And so for no longer be there, it's like you're taking that high you got from that adrenaline rush every day, whether that's in practice or games, and even reaching the pinnacle as a Super Bowl. Like I honestly, for Tom to be playing so many Super Bowls as he has, I know that's got to be tough for him. And so, when you no longer have that, it's like, okay, how can I feel my time, or just that high or that energy I got from doing that. And so. That's been a struggle at times, and just thankful I have a great family around me. Of course, my kids keep me busy, and a wife that cares, about how I'm doing and just helping me, move forward. So
it's cool for me, you training here at my gym, and then Johnny training you, was my first ever trainer that I brought in when back in the Performance Vault gym before adaptive training became the focus. But you kept coming back, and I remember one of our vets one day, I think you were waiting for some dumbbells while he was using them, and he came over to me afterwards, and I'm like, man, you okay? He just had this look like, whoa, bro. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, Rex Burkhead just asked if he could use those dumbbells when I was done. And at the same time, you were putting out, because the dude has no legs next to you that's getting that. Like, what has it been for you to kind of witness the growth of this nonprofit gym and the mission of it?
It's been unbelievable. Like you said, we're back there all the way back, at Old Trident in the little, garage gym. And so it's just an unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, you guys do a great job, and just being able to train alongside, a lot of, Wounded Warriors who have served, or other people, just working their way to some goals they have.
No doubt.
And, seeing that as an example every day really gives you no excuses at all. And so when you're training, or you feel tired, or like, oh man, this one's going to be tough, like you just look over. It's like, I can do this. I can do this.
There's been a couple of times I've done different things. I think you remember I went on that National Geographic show with the raft, right? No food or water for 6 days in the Bermuda Triangle.
Or baby powder.
You got the ball bomb, bro. You got go check out the raft to the bone is the episode. You'll get some laughs out of it. I did take my clothes off on national TV. They did give me a respectable blur line, though. I appreciated that. Shout out to the people in post at Discovery. But as I was on that, you know, the partner I had, if she quit, like we were both out.
Right.
And I remember the first night she wanted to quit. And
man.
it was like one of those things like, dude, we could be back at the resort having some food and drinks. And and I wouldn't. And I was like, no, man, like I can't face my guys at the gym knowing what they've endured and the things they've done and cop out like that.
Right.
Gave me a whole lot of like, all right, bro.
Some perspective.
Yes, perspective is huge. I want to jump around a little bit. I joked about being a white running back in the league and being an endangered species. When I played for the Seahawks, Pete Carroll, like a lot of coaches, they have a DJ, you know, practice and music is going and crowd noise. Guys are dancing and having a good time. But when it came time to lock it in, like you got to lock it in.
Right.
One of the things that they did was after stretch lines, they called it White Boy Wednesday.
Okay.
And the maybe 6 white guys we had on the team would end up having to get in the circle and, you know, do a little dance or whatever it was. And then the next morning they'd put it on at the beginning of the team meeting and put it to different music. So we all looked uncoordinated and had some fun. And that's something that I miss so much about that. Like you have all these guys from these different backgrounds, experiences, belief systems, and you're thrown into a locker room and you bond over, you know, the shared goal and having each other's back, even though, you know, politically you could be complete ends of the spectrum or religiously on totally different sides. But, you know, was there stuff for you that, you know, kind of being a minority in the NFL locker room that you felt like was a great benefit to your own perspectives and just the way that you were welcomed as a teammate? Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, like you mentioned, there are not many white running backs. No, you know, you got CMC, I think Jake Funk, maybe a couple other guys. We got Scattaboo coming up, right? There's a few people. There's a couple out there. There's a couple out there. But yeah, and so, you know, that's how it was for me growing up, though. You know, whether I was in high school or whatever, it's always kind of used to being, you know, the white running. It's kind of probably worked in your favor sometimes, right? Like maybe we remember White Lightning style points, or something. And so, and just like you mentioned, I mean, there's so many different perspectives, and so you know, culturally, whatever that is, and so I do miss it, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was just so much fun being in that locker room. Because you never know what's going to be said, what's going to happen, what conversations are going to come up, debates. There's always, you know, the Jordan LeBron debate, I think, every single day. Who's the best rapper? Exactly. And so, I mean, there's nothing else like a, you know, NFL locker room. So true or false, you drove your same beater car from college or high school into the league for how long? For 4 years, I want to say, in the league, and then I got my second contract, and then I got my truck. All right. So what was that beater? What was the? It was a Mazda 3 Protege. Got out in Omaha, Nebraska. Let's go. Yeah. Classic college car. You know, didn't drive great in the snow in the winters up there, but you know, little studded tires, some chains. You know, I had a moped in Idaho, and I remember there was times driving into school where like my feet were down, like I was skiing, to have other points of contact because you just peel out. That's cool though. I think when I think back to a lot of guys and they blow their, you know, rookie paycheck, or, you know, they go out and do this stupid stuff that should have leased that car, shouldn't have bought it, whatever. But, you know, did guys dog you? Did you ever get any, or did they respect it? I actually, because Giovanni Bernard, Cincinnati running back, he came in the same year. He was second round, sixth round, and we were great, but still great buddies to this day. And so he came in. It was Hard Knocks. We had it my rookie year. That's right. And there was a big episode featured on Gio. You know, first, I think it was the first running back taken that year. And he drove a minivan around. I remember, And so the spotlight was on his minivan. Yeah, my mom says, we're good now, bro. Right. That's hilarious. So I was good. You remember the Woody that I had? Did you ever see that car? I don't know if I saw it. With the Rams, they did this thing called Me and My Ride. It was like cribs, but with the guys' cars. And, you know, guys had Aston Martins and Ferraris. And I went on Craigslist. I bought a 1984 Chrysler LeBaron wood panel convertible. Obviously, you see right out the gate, wood panels. Who has wood panels? I have wood panels. And it parked, it idled at 7,000 RPMs. It was like crying and screaming. But I got it, put some fuzzy dice in the window. The Rams did this little piece, and we'll slap a link onto it for this. But you know, they put it to Sister Christian, like, as a backtrack. And all right, Rams fans, hop in the passenger seat. Let's take a spin. When guys laugh at it, they haven't probably taken a ride in it yet. Once you get in it, I think you're going to want me to pick you up from then on out. they had this whole thing. Anyway, they played it on the big screen at halftime of one of the games.
Yeah.
So then the Woody became like a caricature around town.
Right.
You know, a valet in it at their steakhouse, and they'd put it up front, and like
Yeah.
it was fun. You know, I mean, I had another car that was the daily drive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I always loved the Woody. In fact, kept the Woody a lot longer than my wife would have liked.
Yeah.
It sat in Dola's driveway for a year when I went to the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And then without her knowing, I shipped it to California. It wasn't even running.
Oh, wow.
It was like $2,000 to ship it. The car was maybe worth $500 of sheet metal or parts, you know? But I always loved that because, you know, like people think, oh, you're this big baller, you're whatever. And I think, man, when you pull up in something like that, people are like, dude, I like this guy.
Yeah.
You know, there's something different.
Yeah. There's a low respect factor.
Yeah.
A low respect factor.
Yeah. It was cool when that went on. I had a cassette tape in the car or deck. Yeah. And I didn't have any cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Then fans started shipping them in. So I'd get to my locker boxes of like it was the original Eagles or Whitney Houston or all. So anyway, I still have the cassette tapes even though I don't have the car anymore.
That's awesome.
Eventually you grow up and your wife's like, hey, well, you know, the kids aren't going to drive this in high school. This thing's just rusting our driveway out. But,
right.
Dude, I found something online that we're definitely going to get a shot of. And this isn't shocking to me that you were voted the most athletic in high school. Wow. But can we talk about this, Rex Burkhead? Can we talk about this and maybe
look at that flow, man.
Punch in on this right here. First of all,
not Dave Vobora flow.
That Rex Burkhead with some hair up top.
Some hair, yeah.
Bro, this look, the baggy pants with the white chunky shoes, this look is back.
It's back.
Right?
It's back.
You were trend setting back then, and now that's
Jordans. Yeah, I think those. Yeah, my white Jordans.
Got some white J's on.
Yeah.
I thought they might have been the New Balance dad shoes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or the Monarchs.
The Monarchs. The Air Monarchs. I actually have a pair.
This is my surprise face, dude. Of course you did. This is funny, bro. This made me. This was one of those. I'm like, I gotta print that out and dog him with that,
Holy
dude.
smokes! Oh yeah.
Is this the girl that won?
Yes. She was volleyball.
Yeah.
And then Chris Slott and Carson Meager.
Awesome.
Chris was receiver. Carson was our quarterback.
Nice.
And we were like known as a trio.
Yeah. Well, it was probably Hall of Fame career here in Plano. You're retired number now at Nebraska or Ring of Honor.
Just got the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
Hall of Fame.
Nebraska. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, that's good company.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
You're talking about Nebraska freaking Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
Talking about your family and your wife,
Danielle,
what has she meant to you? Because high school sweethearts, right?
Yep.
So we'll pull a picture of that. I think there's a homecoming king and queen shot maybe, or prom king and queen shot that I saw. That was
probably
pretty good.
So, yeah.
You guys look like babies in it. Yeah.
White suit.
Yeah, strong. Yeah. What has she meant through all of it? Because she's known you since early.
Yeah, everything. She's been with me, those hard times, those injuries, the transitions, high school to college to pro, switching teams, all of that. And so, of course, having our kids, we had Jet, my oldest son, bye week during our Super Bowl win run.
You just timed that perfectly.
Yeah, just timed out perfectly. Week? Yeah. And so, exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, just everything. Coming home on, good days or bad days, she's always been there as a support system. Yeah. And, couldn't ask for a better, not only wife, but also, of course, mother now for my two boys. Yeah.
Do you see some of these Spartan woman principles and character traits in her that you see in your boys?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Absolutely.
Is that a healthy balance? Because I know that you were the one out in the thunderstorms, running in the rain and otherwise, but where do you think you'll lean in and push your kids? Or are you going to kind of let that naturally? I know you're talking about coaching their sports and being supportive, but how do you sort of approach back to how much is just innately in them and you can fan that flame versus how much you're sort of,
poking at it. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if they're going to pursue, sports or whatever that is, there's got to be a passion there.
Right.
And so, for my boys, they do like sports. And for me, I just want to put them in everything, let them try it out.
No doubt.
You decide or pick. You may end up playing it for a long time or you may not.
Which is different than a lot of parents. These days, it's like, pick your sport at 8.
Exactly.
And we're going to put all in this because you're going to be pro. And like, no, man, like the other sports and disciplines help benefit the ones that ultimately, have opportunity.
I hate it. Like, you learn so much from doing other sports and like you said, you don't have to play the sport in the fall and in the spring, just balance it out. Yep. My boys, they love it. You know, you can see the passion they have in it. And
Yeah.
I'm also not going to be that dad who's just beating down on them every single, hey, go out practice, go out practice, go out practice. Like, no, they're 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
there'll come a time later on where, you know, maybe push them a little bit more, but you got to have that balance. So, yeah.
Thinking about that, great coaches in your life, great mentors in your life. I know there's probably an abundant list of people that you could speak to that had great impacts on your career and maybe believed in you when things were the hardest and, you know, helped affirm and foster some of those things in you. But maybe now as you transitioned, are you still one who's looking for mentorship and or, you know, maybe even transitioning coaching through this process? Like, is that something that you've enlisted?
Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely have, you know, talked to people that I've looked up to throughout my career, whether that be, you know, former teammates, you know, Matthew Slater, New England. He's been, you know, a great resource to just talk to.
Jackie's son. Hall of Famers, baby.
Exactly. Gio, as I mentioned, you know, we talked about just, you know, he's gotten big into distance running.
I need to hit him up, bro.
Yeah,
that's my love language now.
Yeah, and so just certain things like that has been, you know, huge for the transition. And then, you know, I got some buddies. Carson actually here on the list is a coach in high school, and you know, I've kind of thought about, you know, maybe getting back into there a little bit.
He'd be a great coach, man.
He's you know, he's a great resource there as well.
Yeah, it is interesting and I think for people watching, like, you know, for us to find other players or guys that we played with and kind of be able to be like, man, I'm not doing so good, right? Like that's worth its weight in gold. But I think to anybody that's facing big transitions in their life or these life-altering moments, finding, again, whether it's a support group, you know, maybe it's through 12-step and some addiction stuff, maybe it's through a church, maybe it's through, you know, clinical-based counseling, but finding a place and a person perhaps to be able to put it in the light. You know, I think that's where you can get out of where, you know, there's that sort of devil whispering in your ear. Were you the type of guy, that voice in your head? Let's talk about that. Everybody's got it, right? It's that little internal piece that, again, like in football, mine early on was you suck, go harder. Like it was this, like, you're not good enough. And it worked to, you know, achieve. But at some point, as football was no longer, that voice was like walls closing in on me. You know, how have you maybe approached now, you know, even just exercise and training yourself, you know, post ball? Because I know it took me a while to not, like, it was only a good workout if I crushed my soul and couldn't walk. And it's like, that's not necessary. I don't need to be wrecked for 5 days after I do this anymore. So how do you deal with that voice in your head, and maybe how have you upgraded its programming and software through the process?
Yeah, no, that's huge actually. Because for me, I always had like that perfectionist kind of mindset.
No doubt.
Throughout
Which is what made
career.
you great.
Yes, which it definitely, you know, makes you great. And so, like I mentioned before, I was going to train, you know, do something every day to help me get closer to that goal. And so pushing through, you know, you feel a little something, you're still pushing through.
No doubt.
Like
in fact, when you find that thing, that's when it starts.
Exactly. Exactly. That's when the anxiety starts creeping in. You don't sleep as well at night because you're like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be good for practice tomorrow. And then, and so post-career, it's like, okay, you're training and stuff. And, you know, at first I was like, oh, I'm still going to push through this. And then it's like, wait a second, like, I don't have a game or a season.
Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? Or, you know, and stuff like that. So I've definitely had to rewire kind of that thinking.
It troubled me to deal with this premise, which was a belief that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There's no staying the same. Feel like you adopted that in a lot of ways?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And when you don't have the, you know, maybe next ridge line, there's things that we know, you know, exercise, right? Taking out creating some stillness, whether that's prayer, meditation, breath work, like just I mean, getting still so that way you can be with yourself before you go out and do the next thing. There's, I think, not everybody like should isolate. That's not a good thing. You know, so balance for you is like you mentioned your quarterback, Carson. You know, he's someone that's known you for a long time and gets you. Someone you can lean on. Where do you find that like you're a little nervous to have that conversation, but what you do, you're like, God, why did I wait so long?
It's tough because for me, I'm not a guy who likes to necessarily talk about my feelings. Like I've just always been that way. And so,
Keep it in.
Keep it in. You know, I remember Sony Michel running back in New England.
Yeah.
He's like, it's all right, Rex. It's like, you know, let it out sometimes, let it out. And it's like, And so it's, you know, it takes me a little bit, but you know, once you have those conversations, you're like, all right, this is beneficial. You know, I should probably do that. Or whatever I'm thinking or feeling at the time, you know, it's fine. It's okay. It doesn't make you soft or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
well, and I think setting is important, right? It's not just like, raw, here's all my stuff.
Exactly.
You know, I think you, like me, is like, I don't want to burden anybody with my stuff.
Yeah.
Yet I also know that if I'm going to be a good teammate or a good partner to my wife or whatever, there's some things that, you can, I know you talk to your wife about everything. Yeah. But at the same time, there's probably, you know, better people to talk to when you're expressing
about certain things.
And it may be around a fire, you know, where like, hey man, at that point, it's not like, dude, we're having some therapy session. It's just bros hanging out and sharing what's going on between the ears.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is there some books, things, tools that you're like, bro, this has been made huge wakes in my life for the better?
Yeah, I don't know about necessarily, you know, books and stuff, but you know, one thing I've been working on, challenging myself, is just being in the moment, just like being where your feet are. And I think I really struggled with like always looking forward what's next. You know, right after I was done, I was like, okay, what job am I going to do? Like, what am I going to get into? And so, you know, I really struggle with it. I'm starting to get better, but just always looking forward. Was that next day, next week? It's just being in that moment, whether you're around your kids or your wife or wherever you are, just being present there. Fully. Yeah.
Do you ever play with your boys and like you're present with them, but you're sort of disconnected to the emotional resonance of the moment?
Yeah.
Because
mine's elsewhere.
Well, it's like, it's like, dude, I know this is exactly where I need to be. And I love these kids, but there's this feeling like this is a good thing. And yet I don't really connect with the emotional resonance of it.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I've told this to my wife because, you know, I think they're naturally as nurturers or other, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like,
what am I?
Then I'm like, oh, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I screwed up? But really the core of it is like, to what you said, it's we're so used to the big next thing and problem solving the ways to be successful to do it.
Yes.
And sometimes that impedes with where our feet are.
Right.
At any given moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect.
Well, this has been awesome, bro. It's been kick-ass to catch up with you. You know, any last thoughts, and maybe it's last thoughts back to your boys, you know, maybe thinking about 6 or 4-year-old you, you know, maybe what is something that you wish you heard or that you want to make sure that your boys hear you with this point?
I would say, you know, going back to kind of how my dad's mentality was with me, you know, if you want anything in life, you got to go after it. You got to go get it. You know, everything's earned. It's not just going to be handed to you. And also just understanding, you know, truly where your identity is, you know, because that's going to, and your faith, and because ultimately that's going to lead you in those times of hardships and
it's the anchor.
Adversity. So.
Do you see that, like, are they like, at the playground, my dad played in the NFL. Like, is there?
No, they're not doing that necessarily yet.
I have one that's like, I don't want anyone to know that my dad played. The other one, it's like the first thing out of her mouth. Like, honey, you don't have to say that at the playground.
Yeah, like, they do, Breck. So my oldest son, he was born the same year we won the Super Bowl against the Rams. In that AFC Championship game, I scored the game-winning touchdown, he has that football, has his name, his birth date, and how much he weighed on it. So he does like to brag about that.
It's cool with our kids. Like, I do with the Starbucks, for example, like Turkey Bowl and all that. You know, my kid Matt Kemp was here and rolling him a baseball, and like he has no idea, you know. And I would have died to be around any ballers like this. And I want them to not take that for granted. But to your point, like, hey man, you have this. You know, all of these potential access points that can help foster you to have whatever you want, right? Now, you got to earn it. It ain't just like, oh, my dad, so then here's my free ticket.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to grind. Well, Rex, bro, this is awesome, man. And thanks for just being you, bro.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, man. Awesome. Thank you.